Hey everybody, I'd like to take a closer look at the popular vote of the last election. And is it possible that Donald Trump may have actually won the popular vote? And do we have Jill Stein to thank for giving us the evidence that he did actually win the popular vote? Let's take a closer look at that. Now, we're going to have to disprove California's vote if you're going to have a Donald Trump win the popular vote, because California is the elephant in the room. They had a massive voter turnout for Hillary, and we have to question if that is legit or not. You can go to any website. There's millions out there that will show the California voter turnout was 75.3%. This is showing, and that is in great contradiction to the national average, which was 55% nationwide for a voter turnout. So how in the world did California, a state that the results were not in contention, the outcome, everyone knew Hillary was going to easily win that state. Neither candidate was campaigning in that. There was no massive get out the vote campaign there, yet 75% turnout. How is that possible? Well, Jill Stein may have uncovered how that could be with her recounts in Michigan. Now, in Michigan, this is a story from the New York Post, and there are a number of stories from other news outlets citing the same evidence. They showed that 37% of the precincts, that's 248 precincts in the Detroit area, had voter fraud. And what I mean by fraud is they recorded more votes than they had paper ballots to support those votes. In other words, they were running the same paper ballot multiple times through the machines. There was one precinct that even showed something like 305 votes casted, but they could only show 50 paper ballots. So those ballots were ran through their machines an average of 6 times each. It's just crazy. So in any case, massive evidence that there was a coordinated effort in Detroit to commit voter fraud, not necessarily dead people voting, but the actual officials at the voting precincts were actually stuffing the ballots. So now that we know how they could have inflated the votes for Hillary, let's go back to California and figure out how this would have affected the election and what the true numbers probably should have been. Now I'm going to use a little Excel spreadsheet here to give us some numbers. Okay, so let's start here at the top. The actual Hillary Clinton vote total in California was 8.7 million votes versus 4.4 million votes for Donald Trump, and then all the other candidates had a total of 1 million votes. There were a total of 14.2 million votes casted of the eligible 18.9 million voters that were eligible to vote, which gave you a 75% voter turnout, which is crazy. There's no way in the world you have a state that wasn't even contested is going to have such a large turnout. So let's assume that in California they did the same thing they did in Detroit. They were stuffing the voter boxes and elevating the number of votes. So if we go with the national turnout average of 55%, and we take this 50 and we take 0.55 times the eligible voters of 8.9 million, you're going to get a real California vote total of 10.4 million, not 14.2 million. So that is 3.8 million fewer votes, and we would assume that they were all fraudulent for Hillary Clinton. So we're going to deduct 3.8 million votes from Hillary Clinton's total. Now what that is going to do is change the California total for Hillary Clinton to 4.9 million versus Donald Trump's 4.4 million. Now Hillary still wins California. even when you subtract the voter fraud based on the evidence from Detroit, Hillary still wins the state. But if you remove that 3.8 million from the popular vote, the popular vote had nationwide had Hillary Clinton at 65.8 million versus Donald Trump's 62.2 million. If you remove that 3.8 million from the popular vote, then Hillary's new total popular vote nationwide comes down to 62 million versus Donald Trump's 62.9 million, which means just by adjusting California, Donald Trump wins the popular vote by almost 1 million votes. And of course, that number would be considerably more if we went and looked at the states like Detroit, Chicago, any heavily populated area where the Democrats might have been doing this voter box stuffing that Jill Stein uncovered. That number would be much greater. So based on the evidence at hand, thanks to Jill Stein, it is safe to say that Donald Trump did win the popular vote. So all this popular vote nonsense needs to cease. Trump did win the popular vote just as he won the electoral vote. If you disagree and you have evidence to the contrary, I would like to see it, but that's what I come up with. Thanks.